Welcome back. Mostly Sports, episode 2. We've done it. A second week. We're back on another Monday. We got the ladies lacrosse on. New York, I think that's the Raging Bulls versus the Boston. Oh boy, what are Boston Guard? Is it the Boston Guard? Is it? Is that right? Yeah, Boston Guard. There we go. Right on, the Boston Guard. They got Paul Revere riding a horse on the front of their jerseys, and I think that is very cool. We got the Charging Bulls. Excuse me, the New York Charging Bulls just have that the Wall Street Bull on the front. I don't think that's a fair representation, really, of what New York is. I hate the stockbrokers. I don't hate the business side of things, but there's a lot of other stuff here. I think that bull gets a lot of credit. I got the Statue of Liberty, entire estate building. There's other buildings too. I know there's other buildings too. I'm just blanking right now. Anyways, we got the women's lacrosse on. Everybody watches women's sports, even if it's lacrosse. So we're watching. We got a nice show for you today. We got a lot of spring training stuff to talk about. I got to get it pulled up here on the notes. Rating over on Medium now. If you get a chance to check us out, it's mostly sports. I don't think it's mostly sports 420 at Medium, but I think it's just straight mostly sports. Yeah, just find us over on Medium. You'll find the ratings for the week over there. It's where all the homework's at, so to speak. The homework, so to speak. Shout out to my wife. She loaned us her light for this week, so our lighting setup is better than it has been, and the microphones are charged. So far, so good. Anyway, a lot going on in Major League Baseball. Like I said last week on the program, we are super excited that it's back. Today is another one of those awful, bitterly cold days that we've been having. It is, it's not going to sound so bad right now. It's 30 degrees right now. That's not the bad part. But the gusts are up to like 42 mpHs. And that's making it feel like 11 degrees. This morning when I woke up, I was going to go ride my bike in Central Park. Thought about it, thought long and hard, saw that it was 9 degrees, what it feels like. And I know you're moving, so you don't really feel that. But I was like, fuck it, I'm not doing it today. And that's kind of been the story of my cycling this winter. I was really good about it last winter. I also had to go to work every day, so it kept me out on the roads. Right now, I'm absolutely in a place where I don't want to ride every day because it's just junk out. It's freezing cold. You get home. I washed my gilet yesterday, my Gillette, my vest, my stupid little wind vest. Caked, absolutely caked in salt and debris. Water turned like sewage black. If I can get that, like, I'll put it in the side here or something, a little graphic for you guys, those watching at home. Pretty disgusting. Good reminder, if you are out there on the roads, wash your shit when you get home because it gets gross out there. So that being said, I haven't really been the most dedicated cyclist these past couple of weeks, or at least the past week or so. I got out on Saturday for a little kick around, went up, saw my friend Manny up at his coffee shop on the up in Morningside Heights, up for Superhet. Check it out. Good shop, good coffee. Shout out to Manny. I think that was Saturday. Yeah, because I was off yesterday. It's Sunday now, or Monday now. Excuse me. So I'm hoping tail end of this week I can get back to some actual riding. I got to get myself. We're in shape. We'll be fine. We're doing Bike MS here in June. Me and my brother, my boy Derek. I think my brother has a friend coming along with us too. We're doing 140 miles from a state park outside of Oil City. I cannot remember what it's called right now. I should have looked it up. I didn't plan on talking about it in the opening here, but we're talking about it. We got a minute left in the opening, so I'm gonna try to plug it. So we're riding in that. It's 140 miles, 2 days, 70 miles, and 70 miles. We're trained up. We'll be fine. I can do that. I want to try to stay in good shape so I can put a good time up. I would like to be able to say that I did that 140 miles, both those 70-mile days, in roughly 8 hours of riding is my goal. 8 to 10 hours riding total if I can keep it below that. But the bigger thing is we have a fundraising goal. We're trying to raise $5,000 to help put an end to multiple sclerosis, MS as it is known. If you guys pay attention to the news at all, you know that getting funding for research and breakthrough treatments has got to be like, I don't know, pulling off bank heists and all kinds of bullshit now because they're cutting all the funding to everything. That's why things like Bike MS and the National MS Society are so important. So if you can, we have links on all the social networks that you're following us on. It's Bernie's Son Cycle Club. If you want to look us up, you can look us up on Bike MS. We're on the register there. You can donate right through them. You can donate directly to any of the links here. Maybe up with the QR code in the screen here if you want to, shoot it. Give us a little donation. Every little bit helps. We also have some bigger donation spots available. So if you're looking to donate like $500 to something this year and you want to have yourself sponsored and featured on a jersey, give us a shout. Okay, that's the plug. Nice, I got it in. Cool. Can't be too upset about that. Like I said, we have a lot to talk about today. We'll start with the Mets. That's where we're going to be most baseball season here. I talked about it on Medium this week. I figure since this is just me right now, it's a one-man operation, I need to be realistic with my goals for what we can do, cover, talk about. We try to do this all in like 30 or 40 minutes on the podcast side of here, and I can write all week long. I try to get 2 pieces up a day if I can, at least a piece up a day if I can on Medium. But the goal this year, at least for the summer, is just going to be to try to tell the story of at least the National League East and the Major League Baseball season as a whole, focusing mostly on the National League East and the American League East because those are the teams that I am closest to, and it is easiest for me to cover. As we talked about, Mets fan, we stay really well connected with the Yankees because we are in New York and I have a bunch of Yankee fan friends. We'll still talk about other sports, but the goal, at least for now, is to at least tell the story of the 2025 baseball season as fully as we can. I think that's a good place to start, kind of a cool place to start with it. And from there, we'll see what happens. But I think that's a nice, realistic goal to start with, is that we're just trying to tell, again, the story for what 2025's Major League Baseball season is and was whenever we get to that point. Obviously, the concentration will be with our New York Metropolitans because that is who we follow most. Bit of a homer mentality, sure, absolutely. But I don't care because no one's paying me. If you guys want to start paying me, that's a different friggin' story. Obviously, that'll cover everybody, and I'm going to do my best to spread the love around. Do not worry. That is still something we're going to try to do. We're going to try to be. I won't let my fandom cloud my judgment toward other teams. I won't let it hide my judgment of other teams, but will not cloud my judgment of other teams. Equal opportunity, So that's the goal of Mostly Sports for the next till November, let's say, until the World Series is over. And obviously, we'll have more sports to talk about in between there. NFL season will kick off. We're just finished the All-Star break here for the NBA. That sucked. That was really, really bad. I don't know why we keep doing these. They don't want to play in them. It didn't seem like the league wanted them to play last night. Cool. 4 nations. Very cool. 4 nations is a very cool idea. You get the best, hockey nations in the world, the best players playing each other for, I think it's a week. I think it ends here on Saturday of this week. U.S. is in the finals. I don't care. It's fun. The guys are actually playing. There's fights. They care. It's been fun to watch. And I think if you did that for the NBA, I think there would be a good, if you put the French players, the American players, Spanish players, and I guess you do an Eastern European block because there's so many mixed Eastern European countries over there that just produce players and just haven't played each other. I think it would be good television. I think people would tune in for it. I think the players would play. They play hard in the Olympics. It's just Olympics too. And the NBA is putting it on. And maybe travel around a little bit for it. Maybe it's not in one place. Maybe, maybe you get rid of that Emirates Cup. It doesn't do anything for me. It's just regular season basketball still. They're playing at the same intensity level. I don't know. I don't think that's an answer to anything. But I think if you work a little international play into things, that seems to be what people like. People like the international play. People tune into the games whenever they're across seas. I love waking up and watching the early football games whenever there's early football to play. Get me up out of bed. Get me some food. Let's turn this game on. Let's get this going. That's why I like the Olympics whenever I can catch them early in the morning. That's why I wake up in the morning, and if there's a cycling tour on, click over to HBO, watch a little cycling tour. It's fun. Early morning sports is good. It gets people interested. You tune in. Like I said, I'm watching women's lacrosse right now, and it's the middle of the day. Granted, it's 12:15. I have nothing else going on. Nothing else to do. I'm sitting here watching women's lacrosse and recording a podcast for mostly myself. So there's a viewer out there for it, franchise. There's a demographic that want to watch international hoops as opposed to a full All-Star weekend, because the full All-Star weekend was such a joke. So we're trying to tell a story of the 2025 baseball season. Can't tell the story of the 2025 baseball season without talking about how much money was spent in the offseason, and not by a lot of clubs. Most clubs didn't spend that much money this year. That is going to be something to watch out for. There is a clear war of ideals happening in Major League Baseball. It's a dramatic way of saying it, but it's always been big market versus small market. But we're seeing it more so now, as we see more so with wealth disparity becoming more and more evident. Just in everyday people, it's becoming more and more evident even in your favorite baseball franchises. Mets, Dodgers, Yankees, top spenders. Richest owner in baseball, Dodgers, Yankees. And that's the charm of being a Mets fan right now, is that the sky's really the limit as far as spending goes. I have a saying just for myself, because I don't love the ultra rich. Not to tread into that territory. I don't think billionaires should exist. I think that's wrong morally. I don't care how hard you work. No one's hard work ever really equates to that without some other help along the way. There is no self-made billionaire, so we're just going to move on from that. Because we're going to be talking a lot about billionaires here. I was saying I only like billionaires if they are helping my favorite baseball team. And in this case, we have two billionaires helping my favorite baseball team now. Close, I guess, not even really all that close, but Steve Cohen, multi-billionaire owner. I think last valuation, he was worth like $14 billion, which is fucking sick. It's not right. He shouldn't have that kind of money. Nobody, again, should. At least he isn't funding like a ton of wars really directly, or trying to, like, I don't know, ruin our systems of government very openly. At least he's not doing that openly, should probably look a little bit more into what Uncle Steve's investments are, but I don't really want to do that and have the illusion ruined for myself. So I'm trying to enjoy at least one thing. Anyway, so he just signed. We just threw, practically $800 million at Juan Soto. And that's going to be your big story for the Mets this season, is can Juan Soto deliver $800 million, grant over 15 years. I don't know what the first, the year by year breakdown is. I don't have it in front of me right now. Can he deliver on what the overall value of that contract is? And we know that a lot of times Mets fans want that to happen in year one. It's not always an expectation or a reality that you could expect from people for that to happen in year one. Lindor didn't do it. Beltran didn't do it. You can go down a list of first-year players with the Mets coming in on big contracts who have had suboptimal years. So the hope is that Juan Soto can obviously avoid that. Because if Juan Soto avoids that, you figure top to bottom, the Mets have built an offensive juggernaut in the offseason. They went through, you can go right down the list. Juan Soto comes back. That's 40 home runs. Could be 50 home runs if he's really swinging. Who knows? Citi Field, is it a hitter's ballpark? I don't think so. They keep bringing the walls in. Which then you got Lindor, 30 home runs. I don't think Lindor can hit 40 home runs, but he can get to 30 home runs again. Alonso, he can get to 30. He can be a 40 home run guy. We've seen Pete hit 50 home runs, and I think he can do it again. I think Pete's going to have all that pressure he was feeling last season kind of gone. It's a similar scenario. I know he's coming in on, it's a good deal. The deal that they figured out after all the delay and all that, they got down to, I think, $54 million for 2 years, 30 up front. It's a good deal for Pete. It's a good deal for the Mets. He'll get to test free agency again next offseason, unless they win the World Series this year, in which case I think Pete comes back. I think he takes that player option. I don't know. I don't see why he wouldn't, unless, can't say anything. Shouldn't say anything, because he probably will go and try to find more money next season, especially if they do win a World Series. So that goes out the window. But, at least he knows how the market works now. Can't be as nervous to see that, maybe, if that was in the back of his mind at all last season. But I don't think we've seen, like, the end of good Pete Alonso, or, like, I don't think that we're talking about a world where Pete Alonso will never hit, 40, 50 home runs again and put up 120 RBI. I think that's something that he can still do and will still do routinely. I think bringing him back is really important. Actually, even more important than bringing in Juan Soto almost. Um, and that being said, Juan Soto has the ability to take this lineup to the next level. He's that bat that they've been, missing since Cespedes. Frankly, that extra power bat, that guaranteed power bat that took them down that 2015 run. It took us 10 years to get back here, but they have that now. So that's your top three right there. That's your first three batters. Maybe then you put Brandon Nimmo in there if he's healthy enough, and fighting off plantar fasciitis isn't easy. But that's a 30 home run guy, 25, 30 home run guy, and these are at the top of their expectations. This is at the ceiling for what we can expect for them. Vientos, that could be a 30 home run guy. Alvarez could be a another 20, 30 home run guy if he gets some consistency and figures out what he's doing at the plate this year. And they say that he's been working on retooling his swing with JD Martinez and his swing academy, or the swing academy that JD Martinez goes to in Miami, Georgia, Atlanta. It's in Atlanta. So it'll be interesting to see what Alvarez has done this offseason when he comes back. And then that just really leaves, McNeil, Marte, Winker, and that's really good. That's your lineup there. And then your bench, Soto's an above, or excuse me, a below average defender himself, which is interesting though, because there's kind of a wrinkle in Mets land right now. Nothing too serious, I don't think, but there is the Starling Marte question. And it'll be interesting. That's one we're going to follow this season, is what happens with Starling Marte, if he even breaks out of camp with the Mets this year or not. They were very transparent, and he talked about this the other day with the media. The team's been very transparent with him, and they've been very transparent with the rest of the baseball world about how they are looking to trade Starling Marte very actively. It's interesting, because we love Starling Marte. Starling Marte is great. I have been a Starling Marte fan since I was living back home in Pennsylvania, if you can believe that. Back when I was just but a lad. He was playing with the Buccos, I think. I was at college whenever he debuted. Yeah, Starling Marte was a Pirate in 2012, so that would have been my sophomore year of college. So no stranger to Starling Marte. I think it's a 12-year career there at that point. Yeah, 12 years, 12 to 24. Unfortunately, we have seen nothing but digression from Marte, though, over the past 3 seasons since he was 2022. One of the best players in baseball, easily one of the best players on the team. Actually got MVP votes in 2022 with the Mets. He had a 3.9 WAR at one point, 136 hits, 63 RBI that year, 292 batting average, OPS of 814. Productive, very productive. But we haven't seen that same, 814, 292 batting average guy. We've seen, actually, he's dropped between, granted he's had injuries, and that's the other thing. Starling Marte is starting to become more injury prone, which happens with players whenever they start getting into these 12th seasons, 10, 12 seasons down the line. It's part of life, part of being an athlete. He doesn't have the stolen base numbers like he used to. He still did 16 stolen bases last season. It's a reason to keep him on the team. 2023, he had 24, even with all the injuries. So there's reasons to speak to Marte, even sticking around with the Mets if you can't trade him. So the hard part is that there isn't much of a market for a guy like Starling Marte, who, again, injury prone, doesn't have the speed in the outfield that he once had. Not really the offensive threat he once was. Put him on the base paths, let him run it out. He's still a serviceable everyday player, or at least a good bench piece. So the Mets do still have reason to retain him and not move him on. The other reason to keep him. I think the more important reason to even keep him, I hate talking about people like that, but to keep him on the team is to say, you brought in Juan Soto for 15 years. It's probably only going to be like 6 or 7 with how players and opt-outs work, and who knows if it's even that many. It could be as little as 5. I think that's when his first opt-out is. He has 5 years before he can opt out. So in that time, you want to turn him into the best version of himself that he can be, and he's already been pretty outspoken about wanting to become a better fielder. If you have Starling Marte, who for years was one of the best fielders in baseball, it does only make sense that you, this spring, see what he can put up for you. If they're good numbers, great. That trade value goes up once you get closer to June. In the meantime, you have him show Juan Soto how to be an above-average outfielder, how to be a $800 million outfielder all of a sudden, because he's not an $800 million outfielder. He's a great bat, really wonderful to have that kind of power and that kind of offensive output where you can expect a guy to put up 40 and 120 and be on base and, make the rest of your lineup longer because people are going to have to figure out if they're going to pitch to him or pitch to Alonso or pitch to Vientos, and it changes the way the game develops whenever you have that kind of a talent in your offense. Transformative for the offense, changes the landscape of the New York Mets as a whole. And obviously, financially, it changes how the New York Mets operate as a whole, or it speaks to that money is no option, or money is no object. Excuse me, money is no option. Money is no object for a guy like Steve Cohen. And be that a good thing or not. So you keep Marte in. He shows and helps Soto. He stays around. He helps Soto get better at defense, work with them on the base. Like everything Juan Soto is not great at is what Starling Marte is great at, or was great at one point in his career. And these are skills that you can teach a player who's still only 26. Like, don't forget Juan Soto is only 26 years old. We're not talking about a 30-year-old, God forbid, but he's only 26. So he's still got plenty of time left to develop. He's still young. He's actually younger than Vlad Guerrero Jr. is. Sky's still the limit for Soto developmentally. Like, this could still be one of the best hitters of all time when all is said and done. And he very likely will be, so long as he stays healthy, which is always the real caveat to any of these conversations is health and wellness. So then you do that up until June. Let's say things go really well for the Mets. The big question mark for the Mets is going to be the pitching. Bullpen always is. Bullpens ebb and flow. So I try not to get too caught up in how bullpens performing at any point in the season, because you can do moves internal and wait out any kind of a storm with a bullpen. And eventually things kind of even out at a point and sometimes even improve as the season goes along. Starting rotation is not always the case. Starting rotation will ebb and flow, but a starting rotation you have to worry about health-wise also. Same with your bullpen. But depth is a problem for the Mets, because after you get down to Clay Holmes, who is a closer that we're turning into a starter, you start talking about a lot of what ifs. It's not like we're already talking what ifs with Frankie Montaz and Sean Manaea, who they're bringing back. Manaea, who had a wonderful season, and I love Sean Manaea. But you have to hope that he's more than Corbin Burnes can be, or perform to the same level that Corbin Burnes can, because, not to be greedy, but the Dodgers made these kind of moves. They went out and they got Blake Snell, and they got Roki Saki, and they brought in just immense talent for their pitching staff. And it feels like the Mets don't value that as much. I think it is something you can build and figure out from the outside, and oftentimes cheap. But there is going to be that little bit of wonder as the season goes on with the Mets, as if they shouldn't have invested a little bit more in pitching. And if they couldn't have spread their money around a little bit differently, like the way the Yankees did, where the Yankees upgraded. You could argue the Yankees upgraded, I think, 3 positions: first base, outfield, and pitcher, because they brought in Max Fried. You bring in Cody Bellinger for your outfield, and you plug in Paul Goldschmidt at first base. Your defense automatically 1,000 times better. Offensive production relatively stays the same. I know Bellinger is a bit of a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get from him offensively all the time, but when he's on. He's really impressive. He helped lead those Cubs teams to that World Series. I think he was an MVP that year, even. I'm not positive. But um, the Yankees made some good moves themselves and set themselves up to not really miss Juan Soto. Um, and you're going to hear a lot of that if Juan Soto struggles and if the Mets pitching staff struggles, particularly in the first couple of months of the season. I would have loved for them to have made a move for a starting pitcher before spring training, because now we're in this situation. We're talking about how can we get starting pitching, and I think Starling Marte is the real key to that. If he has a good spring, him and Jeff McNeil probably should look at their days as Mets as pretty limited so far as the pitching goes. Though I did see a video of Clay Holmes throwing yesterday, and he looked nasty. Dude looks good. He looks very good. And if he can look that good for, 5, 6 innings, which is all we're really asking in a modern day pitching scenario for a starting pitcher, is you get 5 innings. 5, 6 innings. Beautiful. If we can get that, yeah, it's a lot of ifs for the Mets pitching staff. But one way to make it less ifs, there's 2 ways. One is an absolute pipe dream. I don't think it's possible. Jacob deGrom. So I know. Absolute wild scenario to come up with, and I don't think it's really possible. But let's say things don't work for the Rangers this year. They return a very similar team. Granted, they have one of the best players of all time in Corey Seager. I think Seager goes down as an all-time legend when all's said and done. Guy's a hell of a ball player. He stays healthy. Who knows what can happen? Jake Burger, good talent. Jake Burger had a really great season in 2023 before he came to the Marlins, and the Marlins just crushed him. And then they moved him on. That's what they do. Go to the Marlins, get yourself broken, move on, get out of there. And we'll talk more about the Marlins in a second because they're involved in this too. But let's say, like, for some reason Jock Peterson doesn't hit, and for some reason Seager isn't where he needs to be yet. Simeon provides the same amount he did last year. Team didn't really improve in the offseason all that much. They got better, but I don't think that they transformed themselves to a World Series favorite or anything. So there's always a chance in a scenario like what they've also built there with a bunch of injury-prone players or players that you have to say they have to be healthy. They have to be healthy. I know you say that for a lot of players and a lot of teams, but it seems like this Rangers team particularly hinges on their health and where they're at probably in June. If they're selling in June, maybe you can package up some young talent, throw in McNeil, throw in Marte, DeGrom's back if he's healthy. Could be cool. It's a crapshoot. I think the more realistic thing is that they go and they raid the Marlins, though, because there is Sandy Alcantara, who is literally my favorite player or pitcher in baseball right now. Incredible talent, has some of the nastiest stuff. Whenever he won the Cy Young in 2023, he had, I think, 201 strikeouts, maybe 220 some strikeouts, 201 strikeouts, 228 innings. Just insane stuff. And he's been nasty since he came up with the Marlins. He's just stuck with the Marlins. He's hell whenever he plays against the Mets, and I would love for the Mets to get him. I think that's a really good option and a more likely option than anybody else on the trade market right now, because we know the Marlins are actively selling, actively moving players out. That's not a team looking to really improve right now. But they're stocking. They're, stockpile minor league talent situation, as they always are. This is the Marlins. It's how they operate. And if you can take advantage of them and get Alcantara up here to New York, I say you got to do it. I don't know if it's likely. I don't know if it's been discussed, but that's just where my head's at. And we haven't done a full look around the National League East yet. I need to. That's my plan for the rest of the day once this is all done and recorded. Focused a lot on the American League East this week. Last week, trying to figure out what's going on there. I don't know if the Mets are the favorite in the National League East. I want to say they are as a fan. But the Braves are always there. Braves are always going to be tough to get by. The Braves, you can't not talk about the Braves and not talk about their lineup last year just not being healthy like it was in years past. And whenever that lineup is healthy and dangerous and hitting top to bottom, that's an immovable force, which is what the Mets are trying to replicate here. Um, Phillies, same thing. Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos. Castellanos on the team still? I'll have to look into that. Uh, but, it's the same story there as it was last year. The same talent mostly returns to the National League East, with some improvements, and with the Mets, I think, getting noticeably better than other teams because of the Juan Soto addition. More than anything, that Juan Soto addition and bringing back Pete Alonso solidifies them as at least a contending force in the National League East. From there, who knows? But I think the National League East will be really compelling. I'm excited to get down into it today and figure out what other teams have done aside from the Mets, because I have really been focusing a lot on what the Mets have done lately, aside from whenever we're talking about teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees, who also got, better. But teams in their divisions also got better. If you look at the American League East, the Red Sox went out and they picked up. I want to call him Kyle. Is it Kyle Bregman? It's not Kyle Bregman. It's Alex Bregman. They went and they picked up Alex Bregman. I can't believe I blanked on that there like that. Bregman, formerly one of the best in baseball. Can't mention him without mentioning the cheating with the Astros in 2018, 19. So all of his numbers are clouded by that. He was below his career numbers last season, so bringing him over for the Red Sox isn't exactly gonna make them. I mean, it makes them better. It does make them better. Anytime you bring in a player like Alex Bregman, cheating and all that aside, who has had good production in his past and is just coming off of a down season, where I saw a breakdown on MLB Network this morning where they showed that his first half of the season, abysmal, dog shit. Second half of the season, very good. So if you get second half of 2024, Alex Bregman, you get a pretty okay ball player. You get a above average hitter, above average defender. Unfortunately, I have to move him over to second base because Devers isn't moving, which is shitty by Devers. Devers should move. He's not as good a fielder as Bregman, especially at third. Just being selfish. But bringing Walker Buehler, Garrett Crochet, Red Sox got better. They built up their starting pitching. They got two of the best pitchers on the market. Brought in Bregman. Brought in Aroldis Chapman, who's going to be volatile as hell. And then you just have to look around the rest of the division. Did anybody else in the American League East get any better than the Red Sox did? Yes, only the Yankees. Aside from that, you see, and we talked about the Yankees already, so we're not going to talk more about what they did, but they went and they made themselves a better defensive ball club. They're a little bit deeper. Be interesting to see how the offense looks. If it's the same kind of high caliber offense it was as last season, I think it will still score a ton of runs. Goldschmidt's not bad. Bellinger's not bad. It's good. Things are good. But if I'm the Orioles, I don't think the Orioles got any better. If I'm an Orioles fan, frankly, I think they got worse. Orioles fan, I don't think we got any better. Santander's gone. Didn't really replace him with anything. You have a ton of pressure on young talent that has performed well. Give those young players in Baltimore some credit. Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holiday, bright future. But between losing one of the best hitters last year and then Corbin Burns, one of the best pitchers, it's hard to argue that you can rebound with small moves. And I don't recall seeing them having made any major moves. I'm sure there's Orioles fans or someone who's smarter than me yelling about the Orioles making a better move, but I got nothing here on it. Gunnar Henderson. I forgot about Gunnar Henderson, another good young player they have. But again, a lot of young player, a lot of pressure on those names, a lot of pressure on those young players. They won 90 plus games last season. But they still didn't do anything to really get any better. And in fact, they let the Blue Jays do more, honestly, to get better because the Blue Jays at least got their best hitter. The Blue Jays picked up Anthony Santander, and that was kind of a massive loss for an offense like the Orioles. He needs that kind of veteran leadership and needs someone that can, put up 40 home runs like he did. Blue Jays bring that in. They don't do a ton else. Brought in Andres Jimenez in a trade. You're hoping for Bo Bichette to bounce back this year and bounce back in a big way. Hopefully, Vladdy Jr. can perform well with a contract dangling above his head because he's in a contract year the same way Pete Alonso was last season. They'll be in the same conversation this season. Jimenez is probably the best pickup aside from Santander for the Orioles. He's got his gold glove. Each of the last 3 seasons, he's stolen 30 bases last year. Not a great slash line at all. Regressed for sure, especially from whenever he was an MVP candidate in 2022. But he's a great pickup for the Blue Jays, regardless. But the Blue Jays still lost the division by 20 games, finishing with 74 wins. That made them the best worst team in the American League, if I'm getting that right. Yeah, best worst team in the American League. But they still had less wins than the Pirates, who were the best worst team in the National League last year. So congratulations, Pirates fans. The real question for the Blue Jays, and it's that they have George Springer, the other cheater, another cheater from those Astro years, in their lineup. And you could say that Springer has not had good seasons in probably 4 seasons because he's been injured. The same way, he's getting older. I think it's a knee injury, a shoulder injury, and a concussion that's kept him out over the past 3 seasons. Bad numbers across the board for Springer. I don't have any of them written down here. He's had a slow decline every year since 2021. The numbers have gone down since he signed with the Blue Jays. Actually, every year they have digressed quite a bit, or regressed quite a bit, I should say. But I think the Blue Jays put a 500 team out there. Tampa's cool because Tampa doesn't have a stadium. Tampa's playing where the Yankees usually play in spring training. I don't know what that means for them. But I do know that Tampa has a new stadium coming at some point here in, I think, 2028. So they have something to at least look forward to. The question I'd asked when I started writing and thinking about the American League East, it was on the heels of the Bregman trade or the Bregman signing. And it does make the Red Sox a much deeper team. It makes the Red Sox a much better team. And what I came to the conclusion is that it's not any better than it was. Okay, it's better of a division than it was last year because the Red Sox are at least going to be really competitive. And the good news for Red Sox fans is that they have a really, really solid farm system. They have a kid, I think Kristen Campbell, who would have been the second baseman this season had they not signed Alex Bregman. And they have 2 or 3 other good young players that they think are major league ready. They're just pretty much waiting to get their call ups here, and that'll probably happen if they make a run in the fall here. Maybe even sooner than that. You never know what's going to happen over a baseball season. Like I said, you add in that they had, I'm going to say his name wrong, Jarren Duran that they have. Jarren Duran had monster numbers last year, top 25 in all kinds of categories. Doubles, triples, at bats. I think he had 285, 342, 492 line, OPS of 834, again, putting him in the top 25 of all hitters last season. He's an asshole. He said some terrible things. Slared at that fan, which we don't love. We fucking hate, actually. Between him and Bregman, Devers, and Walker Buehler, you have a pretty, I'd say, unlikable group there. Bregman, no good, rotten cheater. I think that's something we have to say about anyone who was on those Astro teams, unfortunately. They made the choice. They put the biggest asterisk next to their name in baseball history that there can be. I think it's worse than steroids. I think what they did is worse than doing steroids. Everybody was doing steroids at the time. Not everyone's ever been stealing signs and sending signals down to the, sending signals electronically to the hitters. It's fucking crazy, guys. That's insane. And that they're even allowed to still play in the league at a point kind of unnerves me a little bit. It really unnerves me because we dragged a generation of players through the mud and I know they cheated too, but they were trying to keep competitive balance amongst their peers because the league had allowed a problem that they knew was a problem to snowball. Sea League knew that these players were doing steroids. The leagues, the commissioners, the owners, the team, everybody knew. They just weren't talking about it openly because they knew what talking about it openly would open up, and it turned into what we now know as a steroid era of baseball. But that's because everybody was doing it. So cheating, yes, but at the same time keeping up and doing it better than the rest. So I don't villainize Barry Bonds the way that I would have villainized him probably even 10 years ago. But I think that what the Astros did show what real cheating in sports looks like. That's what real life cheating. That's real life game fixing. To give yourself that kind of an advantage. Baseball, there's physical advantages you can have, but the mental advantage of knowing what pitch is coming, literally knowing what pitch is coming, where it's going, changes everything. You can't beat that. A team can't beat that because that's the strategy side of it. And if your strategy is screwed because the other team knows your strategy, sorry guys, game over. And they screwed a Yankee team out of a World Series. It's frustrating. It's screwed up. It ain't right. So yeah, Bregman, George Springer, countless people on those teams that I will have a hard time respecting for a long time. Because that's not how you win. Ain't right. Soapbox for the day. We're off it. American League East. Red Sox are better. They're not going to win that division still. The thing is that they're not going to win that division still because I still think the Yankees can run away with that division. They didn't run away with it last year, but it looked like they were going to for a while. I think it's not a runaway per se. I shouldn't say they'll run away with the division. Okay. Let's backtrack. The Yankees aren't going to run away with the division this year. However, I don't know if the Red Sox did enough to become the favorite to win the AL East. They're definitely in the playoff hunt. And that's good news because anytime those two teams can at least have good matchups, it's better for baseball. And that's what's really important this season. A lot of the ways, just trying to find a way to make sure baseball stays relevant, make sure people keep tuning in to the game. It's a beautiful game. I worry people don't understand it and appreciate it enough for what it is. And that's why we're going to try to chronicle it this season so we get all the fun bullshit stories and the stuff that really matters. I think that's where we have something to offer here at Mostly Sports, is that we can find the weird and we can find what matters most. Maybe that's the tagline. I've been looking for a tagline for a while. Maybe that's it. But yeah, that's just where things stand right now from what we've got going on here. We talked about some trade deadline stuff today. That's way down the road. It's been really exciting to see players reporting for spring training. I could have smacked Tim Britton. He called it monotonous this morning in The Athletic. Could have absolutely smacked him because at least he has nice weather. We were supposed to get 10 inches of snow this week in the city, but we're not. It's again just going to be really cold and really miserable. But we'll survive. We'll get through. Spring training's here. We're excited. We're not going to talk about the Dodgers. We're not going to talk about the National League West. We could have done that this pod, but we'll save it for the next one. When we talk about the National League East too as well. Thanks for tuning in today. I had a good one. I hope you enjoyed our ramblings about the Mets and the National League East and what we know about it, and the American League East and what we know about it so far. Been fun. I'll see you guys next time. Give us a follow. If you don't follow us, you're doing us a disservice. So you got to follow, you got to subscribe. Mostly Sports on IG. Forget the letter O exists. Mostly Sports on YouTube. I think you're going to have to wade through some stuff to find us, so I'm going to have to come up with a good tag for that. Anyway, you guys have a good one.